Nasdaq transformed financial markets with the introduction of the world's first electronic stock market in 1971. They have recognized the massive impact technology can bring to the capital markets. Nasdaq is now embarking on a cloud-centric strategy, which is guiding how they think about everything, from data management to product development. With spend optimization always a priority, Nasdaq leverages the CXO Nexus AI and machine learning-based solution to transform the information hiding in their IT vendor spend data into a real-time decision-making tool. We are excited to have Victoria Petrock from Insider Intelligence lead a discussion with Nasdaq leadership on the positive impact of deploying advanced technologies to save money, time, and foster collaboration across the business.
Hi, I'm Victoria Petrock, a principal analyst at Insider Intelligence, a sister company of Business Insider that's focused on research. As part of my work, I track emerging technology and the many ways it's being used to achieve better business outcomes. The global pandemic, huge swings in the financial market, and dramatic changes in consumer and business behavior are spurring companies to invest in more technology than ever. Companies know they need to spend more on IT, but they also must work to optimize that spending. They struggle with understanding their true IT spend, and they face roadblocks that include disparate legacy financial and purchasing systems that can't give them complete visibility into their spending. They're also up against rogue spending and bad data that's inconsistently categorized and can take months to manually sort out. To get their arms around this, businesses are turning to emerging technologies like AI and machine learning that can automatically categorize, visualize, and optimize IT spend. These intelligent systems are helping them unlock the power of their own data. Today, we're going to talk about one such solution, CIO InCight from CXO Nexus, and how it's helping Nasdaq, the iconic stock exchange, get better visibility and optimize its IT spend. Nasdaq has a complex and dynamic IT environment and relies on cutting-edge technology to maintain its market leadership. It's also dealing with a large amount of diverse IT spending, which is spread across 100 legal entities that include not only the Nasdaq exchange itself, but also the Boston and Philadelphia exchanges and 8 other European exchanges. I'm really excited to be here today with Jim and Marie from Nasdaq to hear about their experiences with CIO InCight. Jim and Marie, it's so good to have you here. I know you've worked closely with Ken Mail at CXO Nexus. Tell me what things were like before CXO Nexus.
Prior to engaging with CXO, Nasdaq was really struggling to get its hands around a pretty complicated technology spend that was global in perspective under multiple different leaders, and that posed a lot of problems for us. Specifically, so many of the vendors we do business with would have many different legal names through acquisitions and divestitures and working across different geographical regions. So it was very difficult for us to even know how much we were spending with a single vendor purely based on legal name basis. And our accounting systems treated every single legal name as a separate vendor. So that was definitely a big challenge for us. In addition, we really had very little insight into our spend within technology by function, so to speak, or tech stack. So what were we spending on storage versus compute versus data center versus the daily types of things where you're just buying supplies and equipment. So those were 2 big problems that we had. And after first meeting with CXO Nexus and seeing what the tool could provide, we were really pretty excited to bring that technology in-house.
Before you had this tool, how were you able to consistently categorize across so many systems?
The value that came to me, and I think to some of the other senior leaders who use the tool, is that you suddenly have this automatic mapping that vendors are assigned to these categories that, frankly, sometimes if you're not embedded in the technology unit, you wouldn't necessarily know all the vendors in the InfoSec space versus the storage space. Yes, we all know the very big name companies and the buckets they fall into. But I think in today's SaaS environment where we're doing business with many more companies, the spends tend to be smaller because you're not making these huge upfront investments and you're buying a subscription. But you quickly get to see, wow, I'm really engaged with 20 different vendors in the information security space. and it allows you to step back and say, do I have overlap? Am I buying essentially the same functionality from multiple vendors? And when you step back and you have to say, well, if we can only have one and they're both essentially the same, how do we best evaluate them? So for me, the heat map was really, that was eye-opening to me, because for the first time I got to see the spend graphically, not just from, is it zero or is it $1 million a year, but really what buckets are the dollars falling into. And I think that's really good for senior leadership to step back and say, are we allocating our funds most effectively? Are we underspending in a particular sector? Are we completely overspending here because we bought every single bell and whistle that's out there?
The categorization has also been to great benefit to us, looking at the product profitability model and looked at how much each P&L is using and how much is related to them. This has helped us allocating the cost more efficiently and making sure that each business have enough funds. Nasdaq has a very complicated business model with many different P&Ls. We have to identify costs that are directly relatable to these P&Ls and what is allocated cost that is a shared company cost.
So would you say that your existing financial systems are limited in the functionality they can provide?
Everything was based on an accounting code. And that accounting code could be either entered incorrectly, someone who's putting the invoice in the system could transpose a digit, so something that's hardware maintenance could show up as software lease and maintenance or data centers. There was no system forcing into that bucket. So now, as we have gone through this architecture of creating not only mapping the vendors but the spends with those vendors, we've taken out that potential human error when an invoice is coded into the system, and then it becomes gospel because there's really no way to go back and fix that. So CXO allows us to filter out that noise which may be going on in the accounting system and really give us the view for the technology leaders based on what we've all agreed upon is this is the way we categorize our spend.
How had buying through resellers affected your ability to track your true vendor spend?
The level of spend that's going through resellers is increasing. And unfortunately, what our systems would show is it would show the reseller name. And that does you no good. You would have no idea what was behind that reseller. You would just see this massive chunk of dollars, and no one would be able to say, well, it was actually these 5 different companies, and that was all treated as, that reseller was treated as a vendor.
The reseller view was something we couldn't easily pull together before. We're buying hardware and maintenance both directly from a manufacturer, but also from a specific reseller. So when sourcing asked how much are we spending per year with this manufacturer, it was not an easy task for us to pull together. That view, sourcing is using a lot when they do go out for negotiation. And in that sense, they can push the prices and get additional discounts.
It seems like OEMs have complex product portfolios and make a lot of acquisitions. Did this make understanding your true spend problematic?
Some of the larger vendors we would do business with quite literally could be under 10 different legal names. And that could be due to them acquiring other companies, changing their names. But across different geographical regions, they would certainly have a different legal name. And the way we would do business with them, our accounting systems would treat each one separately. So instead of saying vendor X does business in these 5 different regions, you spend with them in all 5 different regions, it was coming into us as 5 different companies. Instead of saying, wait a minute, it's the same parent company, it's just a different legal name, your spend is in X, it's 5X. And that was really one of the big problem solvers for me in the beginning.
In a complex global environment, it seems like cost center views of spend might pose a challenge. Was this the case for you?
We don't know if different groups are using similar tools, but from different vendors. So with the cost center views, it gives us an insight of what groups are spending on what vendors. Then we can go in and do analysis. What are those that vendors do, and find similar tools and question, do we need both of these different vendors that do approximately the same thing for us?
So these days, cost optimization is top of mind for everyone. How is this helping you with that?
You have real dollar saves either by straight up optimization or cost avoidance. And it allows you to show your customers, people who don't deal with the tools or the spend on a daily basis, to say, do you really need 10 different vendors in this space? What's differentiating them? Why are you doing this? And the bigger the company, I think the greater the payoff, because you get into scenarios where you have isolated groups doing business with a particular vendor or supplier, and someone to the left of them or the right of them is doing something very similar, sometimes with the same vendor. But I'm sure in very large companies, you could have separate people negotiating with different people in the same company, and that's just money left on the table. So the thing I really learned with Ken and his team and what they've done and what Marie and her team did in the collaborative portion of this is that there is real dollar saves, and it is not just spending money to have a flashy screen. If you're using the data properly, you will pay it off pretty quickly.
It gave me a different view of our spend. When you work more tactical or operational, it's easy to get lost in the details and just to get things done. Understanding the bigger picture, it was easier to question, is this where we should spend this money? Does it make sense? Are we spending money in the right places?
When you put things in front of people in a big graphical interface, they really can't avoid what they're spending, and they either justify it or don't. And when it jumps out on the screen, you say, wow, I didn't realize I was spending 35% of my budget in this one bucket. Yeah, maybe I could do without that.
Talk to me about how some of these visualizations work. How do they bring your data to life?
So I think the colors, it goes beyond just the normal graph, because we've seen all different types of graphs, the donuts, the bars, the pies, and things like that. It almost feels like it's three-dimensional as you factor in the size of the boxes, and then the ability really to custom code it any way you want, which was, I think, valuable for us. In fact, I think it's more valuable outside of technology. If you're in the marketing group or on the business side, or if we're trying to share this information with our corporate finance groups, it really helps them see in big bright colors and size where our spend's going. And again, if you're a layman and you don't know much more about information security beyond some of the big players, it lets you see who's in that space and what tools are we buying in each bucket. Are we balancing out our spend? What's jumping at us? I actually talked to Ken about maybe that would be a good modification, and adding a color to our heat map that would say enterprise-wide license versus limited seats, and we can have several different colors. That green is you have nothing to worry about, yellow in the middle, and pick red and says that this is a high risk contract, that it's easy to go out of compliance, or historically you've gone out of compliance, because that's when things get very expensive.
This was another use case that sourcing could use this tool. If we knew about agreement end dates, we could start negotiate months ahead. In that way, be able to get a better price. That's something that doesn't always happen today, because the renewal kind of pops up as a surprise.
If you miss 10 or 20 of those smaller renewals, you may be leaving money on the table.
So does this take a lot of effort to get up and running?
Without hiring any additional full-time employee, it was captured within our business as usual, no additional hires, and automated the data to flow in.
We did this in-house. We didn't hire anybody new. What we did do is we challenged the people on our team, and I think it was a great learning experience for Marie and her team, because you took people who are traditional finance folks, they're FP&A people, business backgrounds. No one had any technological specific training. Nobody was an engineer, but this really allowed them to stretch themselves and learn something new. I mean, something really valuable. So people learned how to work with a vendor to take an off-the-shelf tool and customize it to the business needs of Nasdaq, and at the same time learn how do you do that. That's a skill that they can take on to their next job, their next company, because it really is the wave of the future. And I think that's invaluable. It's something that I couldn't give them. I couldn't send them to training to do it. But we killed two birds with one stone, so to speak. We solved the real world problem for technology at Nasdaq, but we also trained our team on something completely new.
Thank you for learning how Nasdaq controls costs, more effectively manages their vendor relationships, and leverages a platform designed to enable collaboration across the business through intuitive real-time access to their vendor spend data. If you want to learn more about how the CXO Nexus AI and machine learning-based automated solution can simplify and transform your IT spend data, give us a call or email for a personalized demonstration.